Well, let's get into it, shall we? Before we get into it, let me just say this. The first comic book I ever purchased myself, I guess, the first comic that I remember getting my hands on first. I shouldn't say purchase myself because my dad purchased it. But I think I was around 8 or 9 years old. And it was a Transformers comic. I remember it was Transformers number 24. I continued with Transformers for a while. I remember I collected some G.I. Joe. But that was my first foray into comic books. It was because I love Transformers. The weird thing is, I don't seem to have them. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if I got rid of them. The only thing remaining of my Transformers comic collection is this, which is basically a source book. And it's sort of like the breakdown of all the Generation 1 Transformers. Characters, what they did, all that kind of stuff. I loved this book. It's heavily read, you can see. It is not in the best shape. I mean, it's just frayed. The back. This is one of those things where I look at it and I go, I hate when things aren't in good condition. But I mean, it's awesome. Awesome stuff. This is basically a comic source book, an in-depth guide to the powers and abilities of over 100 Transformers. But yeah. Oh, and it's got the movie people in here. People. I guess they are kind of people in a way. Does it have Unicron? Oh, look at that. Unicron. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I just man. I did love my my Transformers. Two of my favorites. Anyway. Yeah. It's pretty cool. But the other thing that got me into comics was the 1989 Batman movie. That was the next thing that kind of got me into the next stage of my comic book collecting career, as it were. That's 93. So hard to sort these out because I apparently don't have any order here. But then this one, of course, Killing Joke is, if you're a fan of the Joker, to me this is the quintessential Joker story, in my opinion. I guess most people's opinion. But let's be honest. I think most people agree that this is one of the best. Of course, that was my avatar for a long, long time. I just love the Joker. Love it. And this was a very adult story. This was, to me, the of course, Alan Moore. It's a very adult story. It's not your typical comic book fare. It was also one of the first comics I got that wasn't on that that almost newspapery kind of thing. And then of course I continued. These are all Batman graphic novels here. Got some Batman Year One by the legendary Frank Miller. I mean, to me, it's like, you can't. To me, those two are probably they're probably the most quintessential. Maybe, okay, so there's Year Two. Year Two isn't as good as Year One. It's an interesting story, but yeah, Batman using a gun. See that, and then this is who he's fighting, is the Reaper. It's not as what do you got? Iconic, I guess. But then here's my heavily read, heavily abused Dark Knight Returns. And of course, the biggest thing about the Dark Knight Returns is it's a story of an older Batman, a 50-year-old Batman. It's set in the future. I wonder what year it's supposed to be. Does it say? I'm sure it does. Golly, man, this is such bad shape. I'll talk more about digital comics in a bit, but one of the striking things about the Frank Miller stories was the use of news, news reports, and it's kind of like, here's the story that's going on, but this is how the world sees it. It was sort of it's an amazing trope to use. Look, almost full full discussions, full interviews sort of done in that style. Very, very cool. And then and this was of course a female Robin was probably the biggest thing here, was him as a 50-year-old man. And this is of course after Death in the Family. So basically, yeah, a female Robin. It was a pretty iconic story. And one of the some of these panels is it's just amazing stuff. This was a series that changed things, to me, year one, Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns changed things. Maybe not in the best way. And yeah, the Death in the Family was sort of a thing. And of course, that's what I'm talking about. That old newspapery style page, which is one of the things that I know this is going to be like one of those, I don't know. Is this controversial? I don't know. But I don't like those. I can't stand it. I don't like my artwork to be faded and crap. I like my artwork to be pristine and beautiful. Because that's why I read comics. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that I was never a fan of those kinds of comics because they didn't stay pristine. The moment you start reading it, it's getting greasy and nasty and don't like it. Gotham by Gaslight was another one. In fact, I think this just recently came out on this is all stuff from like the late 80s, early 90s. This came out on I think DC released a cartoon about this, like an adaptation of this, which is basically what do you call that? I don't know. It's a story about a Batman in the turn of the century, 18th or I guess 19th century. And Jack the Ripper is the villain in the show, or in the it was interesting, but I got to a point where very quickly I realized that I didn't care about preserving my comics. I wanted to read good stories. And story is just like movies, it's the most important thing. If you don't have a good story and you don't have good characters, good plot, all those things, if they don't all work in concert, it does not work. So yeah. And this isn't a comic, but this is sort of the story of the older Batman comics and things. It's got some classic reproductions of the covers, stuff like this. I got into all this. Oh, that's one of my favorite covers of all time. Of course, it's not a comic book that I own, but I love that cover right there. It's just awesome. I was never a big fan of the campy Batman either. I know that's probably I don't know. Is that a bad thing to say? But like, come on. You know, buy your war stamps or your war bonds and stamps. You know, I liked it when Batman was a little more serious. Um, I read the hell out of this one, and it's again got that newspaper style. It's a little thicker, but it's still got that style. And there's a big stain apparently. I don't know if that's oak or from years and years ago. But this is just basically a collection of the greatest Batman stories ever. And apparently volume 2, which is a bummer, but yeah. I read the hell out of that. This one was one, I don't know why I have it in a plastic bag. But Son of the Demon. So this is I believe this is, I mean, I bought this back in the day, but this is kind of a lot of Batman Begins comes from ideas present in here. This is Ra's al Ghul and of course Talia, who turns up in Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, that was I guess what happened was I started to realize, because I have some of the regular Batman issues, but I realized that I didn't like collecting individual issues. I'd rather have a collection of stories. And this is a great point. So Nightfall. This was a big deal back in the day because this is where, of course, Bane is introduced and he breaks Batman's back. Spoiler alert for a 30-year-old comic, I guess. But yeah. In fact, the last page. But again, I wasn't a huge fan. Of course, this is the volume 2, Who Rules the Night, with a new person in the suit. That was kind of a big deal. Azrael, I believe. But I never bought the third one. But yeah, I never really finished this story, the Nightfall story, so I don't really know how it turns out in the comics. But it's one of those things where I love the idea of having a self-contained story. One of the things that always turned me off as a kid reading comic books is that they would reference things that have to do with the story, but is like, but see G.I. Joe number 23 if you want to know more about that, because they reference something that happened somewhere else. And it was always annoying. It was like, why can't you stand on your own? Why do you have to make me buy all these other comics? And then what happens is this is what happened to me. I bought that comic, and then it referenced something different. And it kind of made me feel like I was missing out. And maybe that's the point, gets you to buy more. But as somebody who, wants to know the whole story, that's annoying. So it always was a big problem for me. I guess let's see. Let me move these out of the way. Put these over here. Oh, there's a lot. The weird thing about, in fact, we're going to just hold off on that. Let's just get into the loose stuff, because this is, I kind of want to save to the end. One of the things about, collecting is that sometimes it's just like some of those, like last week, you saw some of those Star Wars stuff and I'm like, I don't even know where this came from. I didn't buy this. Somebody must have given it to me and I stuck it in my Star Wars box. I don't remember getting it. I have comics I don't recognize. Like, I don't remember buying. I don't remember reading. I don't remember even having. And what's weird is some of them are quite iconic. But we'll get to them. A lot of this is my Batman collection. Some of it. There's more down here. But so this is December 87. Some Batman, let's see, 414, 415, 416. And I think this is... See, and this is the kind of thing. I have this comic and it's part this way. Part 3 of 5. Like, I don't even know how this started. A Lonely Place of Dying. I don't remember reading this at all. But I have 441, then I have 443. So I must have missed some somewhere. 444. I've got a bunch of Batman. But the thing is, it's almost like the most iconic things were the covers, because the artwork on the inside wasn't fantastic, at least in my opinion. So yeah, the Batman ones, it's like I look at these now and I go, are these even? I don't. Like I said, I didn't collect to be like, at least in this time, I was like, I don't want to collect things just to collect things. I want to collect them because they're good stories and I like reading them. The idea of preserving them and putting them in bags and all that turned me off. I didn't like that. Oh, let me put these over here. Now, what's weird is I have these random comics, and I think they're from the early 90s. There was a company called American Entertainment. Now, I don't know how many people remember this company. American Entertainment and Entertainment This Month were the two companies that they were everywhere. They were everywhere, like in all kinds of comics. Wizard, which was the big comic news, which I have. It's weird. I only have one Wizard comic or Wizard magazine here. Which this was kind of like the news, the comic news of the month or the week or whatever. I think it's a month. But that is is it All-Star Superman? Which one is this? That the Superman and I don't even know. The weird thing is I didn't like DC except for Batman. I wasn't a huge fan of superheroes for the most part. Batman was always my guy because I love the idea of a guy with no powers fighting crime and fighting supervillains. And he was just a regular dude. I mean, sure, he was a billionaire or whatever and had, unbelievable toys. But yeah, that's what I liked. I didn't like Superman that much. Of course I love the movies, but I wasn't a huge fan of the comics because it was like really Brainiac and all this dark side and all this stuff. But like, look at that artwork. I love that kind of artwork. It's just good looking, and the art is sharp and it's clean. This is a price guide from, when is this? This is a Wizard. Wizard was cool because it kind of gave you prices and stuff. September 2000. I have no idea why I have this. I just have stuff. But with American Entertainment, going back, American Entertainment This Month were mail order comics, and you could get on a kind of a subscription thing. But their big thing is that every month they sent you a catalog if you signed up with them, and they would say, these are the big things coming out, right? And people were buying multiple copies of anything they could get their hands on that they thought was going to get a lot of hype, because around that time is when the older comics started selling, like the bronze, silver, golden age of comic books. They were selling for crazy amounts. So all of a sudden there was this glut of people coming into the industry and purchasing up a bunch of stuff. And because of that demand, they made more comics. Because there were multiple copies of every comic, the prices went down. And those prices on these old comics most of these comics that I have, they're not worth jack. I was looking at, I was like, oh, I have a Spawn #1. And I look and, $5. Of course, if you get them graded, they're worth more. But I remember that there was a point in my life where I said, I'm not a collector. Not in that sense. I don't want to buy something to try to resell and recapture whatever later. And I've gotten into that a couple of times, and it got to a point where it's like, that's not why I buy things. It's not why I don't buy something to keep it in the box and never open it for the sole purpose of selling it. You know? Like I have my Zelda in the box, but it's because I like the box. You know? I have things that are, most of my stuff is out of the box. You know? I have my Lego sets. I open them up and I build them. Now, for a few months, a few insane months, I purchased a bunch of Lego sets. I have a bunch of Lego sets in my closet that were never opened. They're still in the box from Lego. And they were expensive. And I'll probably never do that again. I realized that these are meant to be opened up and played with. And I am not the kind of person to just collect things for that sole purpose. It's just not it's not my DNA, it's not my nature, whatever. So, the idea, there was that insane period, American entertainment was a big part of that entertainment this month, where I was purchasing a lot of things for the sole purpose of, oh, I want to make sure I get that number one. I want to make sure I want to get this. It wasn't because there were a bunch of good stories. It was because I thought, man, I could make some money from this. Now, here's the curious thing. Like some of these, what they used to do, if you purchase so much, they would give you extra stuff. And they would give you stuff that was like, oh, well, this is going to be, a big, high dollar item in the future, Really? I don't think so. I wonder how many people went broke, buying up comics, and they're not worth jack now. This says Uncanny X-Men. This is on eBay. 285 and 286 set newsstand variant covers. So I have these too. Jim Lee, right? They're worth 99 cents on eBay. And then these, I don't even understand where I got these. I don't have any idea because they're not protected. They look like they'd been read. I didn't read them. But it's the first 5 issues of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And you might say, some of you might be going, what the hell is that? This is one of the first real forays into multiple dimensions. So in this series, you had all kinds of characters from what had up to that point been like separate things. They all came together for this huge, amazing crossover kind of event. And what happened was a bunch of big mainstay DC characters met their end in Crisis of Infinite Earths. So this is from April 85. I don't remember getting these. I didn't buy them. They look, like I said, they look like they've been read. I don't know where I got them. No idea. I have this. Spider-Man number 152. Does this say what year? I'm kind of curious. June 83. And it's torn up. It's just an old comic. No idea where I got it. No idea. This is I remember this came in the Dallas Times Herald. It was a crossover, Spider-Man and the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, advertising supplement to the Dallas Times Herald is what it says. I sort of remember that, but oh, are they all? Yeah, that Spider-Man, I don't know. That first Spider-Man I showed you, but here's another Dallas Times Herald one. Christmas in Dallas. Like what the hell? Oh, there you go. Dallas Times Herald Kool-Aid Man. That's a collector's item. Is this another one? No, this is just a regular comic. This is DC. But this is a Superman number 364. And look at that. Look at those prices. 60 cents. Woo! But yeah, and then Bugs Bunny? Huey, Dewey, and Louie? Don't remember where these came from. No idea. I would be lying if I told you that I knew where those came from. No idea. Oh, look at that. It's another, Oh, yeah. I remember this. It's a Batman and Judge Dredd. Sorry for the reflections of it. I don't know how to do it, but a Batman Judge Dredd crossover. And Judge Dredd, man. Judge Dredd was a cool. There was some. Simon Bisley was an amazing artist. Is an amazing artist? I don't even know. But yeah, I remember really enjoying that. Let's see. This is from. I'm pretty sure I bought this, or my parents got it for me, or whatever. But this is the movie adaptation of Ninja Turtles, summer 1990. Of course, your standard newspaper-ish pages, which I'm not a fan of. And then I have these. I don't know if I bought these or if I don't know where these came from, but I have two of these. Ninja Turtles collecting, or kind of a graphic novel style collection. But this is different than it's got almost a cartoony styling. And I remember kind of liking this. I remember kind of digging it because it was I like the artwork. I mean, like, they look cool. But they also look kind of childlike in some. I don't know. That was alright. But then I have this, and again, I don't know why I have this. Because I believe this is included in a bigger collection than I have down here. But this is the styling of the original Ninja Turtles back in the day. It was black and white artwork. I'm trying to find a. Yeah. And that's the kind of artwork from Ninja Turtles that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the black and white artwork. In fact, I remember this has been heavily used, but that's because I remember drawing that. I like that artwork better than really any of them. But what's weird is I guess the artists just got better, because look at them there, but look at the people. The people look weird. I don't know, but I enjoyed this era. And then here's some what else we got? Here's some Batman versus Predator. They're bent up. They're in plastic bags, but they're bent up and stuff. But again, I got to the point where it was like, I'm not about the collecting. Just want the good stories. Here's an Aliens comic. And that is a Simon Bisley cover. I saw this on eBay for about $5. That's how much it was when I bought it. So yeah, yeah, there's some more. Oop, crap. And see, that's probably why it's bent up, is because I did stuff like that where I just throw it on the ground. So I have some of the original Nightfall comics, single comics. I have that foil cover number 500, which is kind of neat. But most of the other ones, they did. It was almost like they were trying all of these different ways to try to make things special, and it just wasn't working. So you've got this little slip cover thing that kind of goes over it, and it's kind of cool how that lines up, but it didn't mean anything. It didn't do anything. And then they would put them in these special bags, and it would come with other stuff. Like what's in here? Again, opened. Didn't care. Wanted to read the story. In here. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. And the Azrael version of Batman. Pretty neat. But again, I didn't care. I wanted to read the stories, which is why I stopped collecting single issues and just started collecting graphic novels, reading the stories that I wanted to read. Yeah, that foil is, and that's the thing. It's a very strange thing that they were doing. So you've got this really nice foil cover that just pops, and then you've got this crappy newspaperish paper on the inside. It was like, why? I just don't care. I just don't care. And that's one of the things that turned me off. I guess it's the Batman that really helped turn me off to the idea of collecting single issues. It was just like, why am I doing this? Why am I spending all this money on this? But as I said, American Entertainment, that's when things really started getting crazy. And Image Comics, which, if you guys remember Image Comics, it was kind of like, you had a bunch of the biggest, titans in the industry. Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Silvestri, right? Rob Liefeld. They all pooled their talents. That was the big thing. Was that, oh my gosh, all of these guys that used to work on the big two, right? Marvel and DC. They're going and they're gonna create their own comic company with their own new unique characters, their own stories. Wow, this is gonna be great. Some of them were absolute dog shit. Some of them were so bad. Yeah, but we'll see. And what I did was I got into that whole idea of, I've got to have all the number ones. I've got to collect them all. I don't care if they're good or not. I'm just gonna collect them for the money. I gotta make that money. And that's one of the things that just, it took me a while to really realize what I was doing. And then I was like, I don't care. But I got a lot of them. This is the, Wildcat Special, number 1. That was Jim Lee's baby. And I gotta say, for artwork, Jim Lee was the freaking man. Actually, is that even Jim Lee? I love Jim Lee's art style. Yeah, it is Silvestri. Mark Silvestri, right? But there's a Gen 13 half. Oh, that came free with one of those Wizard comics. Inside Image, which I think is just a thing. There's my Spawn number 1. Huh. There you go. There's ETM, Entertainment This Month. But see how they would say, highly recommended, red hot, highly recommended. All of these were just like, oh my gosh, you've got to buy these. And I think that's what happened is it basically killed the industry by this glut of people coming in and buying all this stuff. They were selling it, but then that wasn't worth anything. And then they get sick of it and they just stop making but I have why do I have 2 number 3s? I have no idea. No idea. I have a number 4, number 5, and I think I go all the way into the 20s with Spawn because Spawn was actually a really good character. If you remember, they have done many things with Spawn, and they continue to want to do things with Spawn because Spawn was awesome. Spawn is a cool character. The artwork again, loved it, loved it. Um, but here's Wildcats #1, and that's Jim Lee for sure. But I love his art style, his character design. I love it. This was a foil Wildcats #2, and I collected this for a while. I have 2 #4s of that for some reason. Is that Booth? Ah, yeah, I remember drawing that because I love the pose of Voodoo there. But like nobody cares anything about Wildcats. I just love the art style though. It's very busy, but I love the art style. And I have another special. Weird. I have 2 specials. Wildcats trilogy. There's another Wildcats. What? Why do I don't understand. I have another. I have a bunch of. I just have a bunch of doubles of stuff, and it's because of Entertainment This Month and American Entertainment. They were both like, "Oh my gosh, you gotta collect this." I would go, "Oh my god, I gotta collect. I gotta buy all this so I don't miss out." Here's a Cyberforce Zero. This was Silvestri's baby, but I've got #1. What is this? See, what the hell is that? I have 2 copies of #1. That's #1, and that's #1. They're both Cyberforce. I really enjoyed Cyberforce. I thought it was pretty cool. But, yeah. And then, that was the other thing that they were doing a lot back in those days, is these crossover events, right? So, you had, of course you had the Marvel Civil War stuff, but you had this kind of stuff. Image and Valiant, so 2 different comic companies coming together and doing stories. I think I've read these. I don't remember them. So they must not have been that good. But of course, what did they do? They were doing this kind of stuff. Like, ooh, all of these different foil covers. I bought into it, and I bought them. That's I don't know. But here's a Deathblow, which was, I don't even remember who's. I don't know. This was a big deal, and they're probably not worth anything. But the Max #1, I have 2 of them. Pit, cool artwork. Pit #1, got that. Let's see, that's the thing. It's like you go through all this stuff and you go, there's got to be something worth something in here. No. In fact, this was probably the biggest deal they made. That American Entertainment was like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to get these because these are going to be a big deal." Mystery Incorporated. No. There's a Savage Dragon #1. I don't know what these are, but I have a bunch of them. These Darker Image. And then Tribe number, I got 2 of those. Wildstar. Oh. There's the Darker Image. I have 4 copies of the same comic book. Why? And then there's your Youngblood. And I think Youngblood #1 was the one that for the longest time was a bigger deal. I don't think it's a big deal now, of course. But at the time, that was the one that was worth the most. Yeah, here's one that's graded a 9.8. And it's $10. I ought to be charging them rent for how much space these take up. They're not worth jack. But I have Youngblood 1 and 2. And I gotta be honest, I've never been a fan of Liefeld's style. And that was the other thing that Image did. So you got Liefeld doing Youngblood, and they introduce another character, Shadowhawk. So then you think, oh my gosh, I've got to buy that number 1. But the one thing about Youngblood is it always seemed to have... See, that's so annoying. Like, look at that. I was never a fan of Liefeld's style. His head is tiny compared to the rest of his body. These big bulging muscles. I just was not a fan. But I've got a bunch of these number 1s, probably not worth jack. Alien vs. Predator, Deadliest of the Species. What are these? This is Dark Horse Comics. Don't know what it is. Again, I have a bunch of this. I think some of the, I gotta be honest, I think some of this stuff is stuff that American Entertainment or Entertainment This Month put in because if you purchase so much, if you hit some level, some imaginary level, they would give you free comics. And so I have a bunch of comics that I don't know what they are. Don't even know. Like, never seen these people before in my life. Don't know. Oh, and of course I bought that because Spawn. And I love Spawn. Now this is what I was actually looking for earlier. I don't know why it's in the Dark Horse stuff or in the other stuff, but that's the comic adaptation for Batman, the movie, 1989. Which is cool. And I gotta say, the artwork was pretty good. Gosh, come on. But yeah, the original Batman was good stuff. And these are all Dark Horse Insiders. They came free if you bought, at least at my comic shop back in the day. They just gave them to you for free when you bought a Dark Horse comic or whatever. And sometimes I don't even think that was necessary. They just give them to you. Anything to get you to come back in and buy more. So, see, you can see, I have a pack of comics. I think this came from Entertainment This Month or American Entertainment, and it's just a bunch of random crap. Like, I don't even know what's in here. Supreme? Brian Murray. Don't know who that is. But this is a bunch of stuff that... Oh, yeah. So there's that. Another Spawn number 6. Premiere. And a Supreme number 3. I know, because I guarantee you, I don't know who Supreme is at all. I didn't buy those. Those came free. And I would not... I don't know. But that's why the comic industry failed in the 90s, is because they printed so much stuff that companies like American Entertainment they were selling so many comics. And there was, when you have 10 of something, it's worth something. If you have a billion of something, it's not worth anything. I mean, Billy and Jay, they will tell you. The more of something there is, the more common it is, the less expensive it is, and the less desirable it is. Nobody cares if you have a copy of Super Mario World. At least not that I know of. Why would anybody care? I do have some cooler stuff to show you here, but this is another one that I remember. Somebody said somewhere along the way, oh, you gotta get X-Force. You gotta get X-Force number 1. It's worth so much. And that's Liefeld again. and look at how ridiculous that anatomy is. How tiny his head is. I'm not a fan of his style. I get why he's popular, because he would, but look at how misshapen. And I'm not trying to dog on Rob Liefeld. I'm just saying, I'm not a fan of his style. With the sealed card in the plastic, $2.99. And this is one of the things where I got to a point where I was like, I'm just going to buy comics because I like reading them. I don't care if they're worth anything. Like, I don't know. Like, these aren't even in packages. X-Force or Extreme X-Men. Because I got back into stuff like this because I like the artwork. That's what I enjoyed. It got to, that's what I liked. I will say I got kind of bent out of shape because they did Ultimate X-Men, and Ultimate X-Men was the rebooting of X-Men for a new audience. I wasn't a huge fan of Spider-Man until later. So I don't have any of those. But I do have these. I have two number ones here. I have a number 2, and I have the collection with 1, 2, and 3. And then I have 3 through whatever. I have a ton of them. But they're not worth anything. They're just not. Not worth anything. So it's like, it's one of those things where you start to realize it's almost like I'm collecting for someone else. It's like I'm not even collecting for me anymore. So what's the point? Why am I collecting all that kind of stuff? This is why I feel the way I do about a lot of this stuff. And if you want to know why I was never a fan of the Star Wars Legends, because you might have noticed, Rob, you have Star Wars all over your room, but why don't you have any Star Wars comics? I only have a couple. These are the graphic novels, Dark Empire 1 and 2. And, not a fan. But, if you notice, right on the, there you go. In his cape there, if I can get even closer. See if it'll zoom in on that. Dorman. My man Dave Dorman. The guy who did my comic thing there. This guy he did some amazing artwork. In fact, I've got more of it here. But it's so dumb. The Empire comes back. Luke turns to the dark side. Blah blah blah. And this is what people like. In my opinion, I'm not trying to be like all what do you call it, gatekeepy on Star Wars, but this is the kind of stuff that it felt like fan fiction. It didn't feel like an actual continuation of anything, because it felt like somebody was just playing around with their action figures, making up stories, and it just wasn't my thing. I get why it's popular. I get why people liked it. I never did. I was just not a fan of any of that stuff. But then you get into some of my favorites. This is what made me a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Big old fat book. And it's weird. You look at let me just take this out. So if you look at the style of artwork here. Let me go back a bit. There we go. It's like, oh man, they look kind of awesome. That's the style from back then. The original Ninja Turtles. That's what they looked like. Not exactly the same. I wasn't a huge fan of the artwork, but the story was good. I really enjoyed the story. And as I said, that one, wherever that one went, that was my favorite kind of style of the look of it. Wherever that volume 2 went. But now we're getting into probably some of my favorite. Talk about artwork. I loved the Aliens comics from Dark Horse. I loved Alien, but I love the artwork. There's so much depth. It's beautiful. This is all was it Denis Beauvais, however you say his name. Look at that. Beautiful. It's just gorgeous stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoyed. I mean, look at this one. That is so awesome. It's beautiful. That is artwork. That is good stuff. In fact, I'm gonna set these kind of aside so I don't. And then I think this was the first, because what Dark Horse used to do is they did I think it was a monthly comic, but it was 3 different stories in every comic, so short stories. And this was the original first Alien stuff. Oh, I forgot about that. I can't really do this without screwing it up. But this comic series, can I do this? You can kind of see it makes the back covers make a larger image. So like, that's kind of neat. You can kind of see it. It's hard to do it kind of backwards. Man, just great, unbelievable looking artwork. This was all in black and white. And then, this was the original Aliens versus Predator. There's 34, 35, and then 36. And on the back of this one is some Dave Dorman artwork. Beautiful. Love it. Yeah, you can see Dorman's name in the water right here. But yeah, just awesome. His artwork always had so much like, you know how sometimes you can look at I don't know, there's movement, there was action in his artwork. And then we have the Aliens vs. Predator full comic. That was the precursor to this series, which got me really excited. And yeah, that kind of dates it, doesn't it? Predator 2 came out in when? 1990. But these are in pretty good. Yeah, that's Phil Norwood did that cover in 1989. I'm sorry. Is that right? Wow. But the artwork in these are awesome. And I loved this story. This was a great Alien story. And then Aliens went off the deep end, and I started not liking the artwork, the way that they did it. Yeah. Let me see if there's anything else that. Now, see, here's the weird thing. I was like, yeah, I'm not a fan of this new series, but look, it got even worse. I'm sorry, but that's terrible. That's awful. In my opinion, that is awful. Why? Why would you do this? Look at that. That looks. I'm sorry. Not my thing. They also did Newt's Tale, which was kind of interesting. It's basically the original Aliens movie, but told from Newt's point of view. So you only get basically the scenes where what she went through. Kind of cool. And then here's the Alien 3. Oh wait, that's just number 1. And then I have a RoboCop versus Terminator. I don't know why I have that. But here is the graphic novel of what I showed you, where it kind of the covers come together or whatever. So yeah, there's the original covers, and then that's what the picture that it made if you put them all together. But what was interesting is this story came out before Alien 3 did. And this is basically the story of Newt as she's older with an older Hicks, and they go on an adventure. And what happens is the last which was a big deal. The last panel is the return of Ripley, and she's got this huge ridiculous gun on it, but it says, "I'm tired of watching. It's time to finish it." And it's basically Earth War is the next one, right? So that was the continuation of the story. But then Alien 3 came out, and at the very beginning of the movie, they kill off Newt and Hicks. So they went back and they changed the names of the characters. So I have the original comics where there were actually Newt and Hicks instead of, what is it, Billy and... Doesn't even matter. Anyway, little history there. That doesn't really matter, but it's kind of cool, kind of interesting, especially if you're an Aliens fan. And then, of course, I had to buy this. I saw this in a bookstore, Half Price Books. The original Crow. I like black and white comic art, but it's not my favorite. It's just not my favorite. But it was interesting to see, basically, the movie from a different... Like, this is what inspired the original Crow movie. It's kind of interesting. But around that time, so mid-90s, I would say, I'd gotten away from Image. I'd gotten away from the collecting thing. And I'm like, I want to read good stories. And so I started talking to people, friends of mine, people at comic shops, whatever. We tried to find, or they tried to help me find my, like, what do I find important in reading comics? And they said, well, it's the story, right? Your story. That you're a story guy. And I said, yes, that's true. And he said, okay, well then you got to read this. So I bought it. And I got to be honest. The artwork, not my style. I looked at the first few panels and was like, isn't for me. This isn't for me. And one day, oh, look at there. Oh man. Hold on. It's a Blockbuster receipt, but it's blank, which means fucking it's faded. Because remember, these were like thermal printers. So if you put a lighter underneath it, it would mark the... But I'm trying to read to see, did I buy it at Blockbuster? Apparently I bought Napoleon Dynamite, The Village, The Notebook, Fly to the Phoenix, 48390. I honestly don't know why this is in here. Maybe I used this as my bookmark. But I can't see the date. I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, this is one of the last stores that I worked at. That would have been late 90s when I read this the first time. And I gotta say, if you are a fan of comics in any way, shape, or form, and you haven't tried to read this, you just gotta do it. You gotta do it. It is probably the most important comic story in the history of comics. I can't think of a more important comic, because it basically takes the superhero genre and does all kinds of crazy things with it. And this is Alan Moore, of course. Alan Moore did this, and he did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He did, of course, a lot of other things too, but these are I would say these two and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen were the number one, like, insanely, well, like I said, it changed the comic industry forever, and it's still being referenced. It's still being emulated today. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. It's a story that takes place over many, many years. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. This is the book that changed an industry and challenged a medium. If you've never read a graphic novel, then Watchmen is the one to start with. And even if you have, it's time to read it again. There's a part of me that almost says, don't read this first if you're new into comics, because if you read this first, this is this is the basis for comparison for whatever comes next. And that's a tough act to follow. And it was a tough act to follow. Once I read it, it made everything else seem pointless in a way. It kind of ruined things. It's kind of like I want to go on a vacation, and you ask everybody, all these people, what's the best vacation? And then you do that vacation. Well, now every vacation you have after that isn't going to be as good. Do you want to kind of save that in a way? You kind of want to save that until later? This was another one that took me a little bit to get into. This was before, again, I read these way before the movies came out. Not that that matters. Like, I'm not a gatekeeper of, oh, well, they didn't do this in the movies, then it's not as good. I'm not a gatekeeper that way. But this was another one. The art style wasn't my thing. It took me a while to get into this. But once I did, I really enjoyed it. Because it's really, remember the 5th of November, right? That whole thing. This kind of almost anarchy, chaotic. In a weird way, it cemented a lot of my ideas about government. But it's also, you also have to realize that books like those are meant to be their entertainment. But I feel like Alan Moore was trying to say something. Yeah. A frightening and powerful story of the loss of freedom and identity in a totalitarian world. Timely? Much? V for Vendetta is the chronicle of a world of despair and oppressive tyranny. Look, it's awesome. It's awesome stuff. There's a part of me that wants to display all of these. But these are not for children. These are not your grandparents' comics. I guess in theory, I could be a grandparent. You know what I'm saying? These aren't the golden, silver, bronze age of comics where, pow and bang and all that kind of stuff. It's more adult. Is that better? No, it's not better. It's just different. I think that's the point, with all of these, is that it's not about being, oh, well, we're just going to take things up a notch because we can. No, we're going to tell a story, and if it dips into the more mature audience level, then that's what we're going to do, So I love comic books. I do. I love good comic books, I should say. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I love. But now I've gotten into a different realm. Now, I showed you the way that comic art looked. But look at what I have. I bought Crisis of Infinite Earths to read not too long ago just because I'd heard it's a great story. You should read it. And I read it. It wasn't bad. But look at how much better it looks on an iPad. You don't have to worry about the comics getting, the yellowing that happens. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It looks awesome and you have it with you and it's awesome and it's awesome. Did I say it was awesome? Because I'm pretty sure I meant to say that it was awesome. I would rather read on this any day. And I know there's people that are like, yeah, but the the smell of the paper and the what. Okay, if you're into that kind of weird sensual kind of thing, then I don't know what to tell you. But this is so much better for me. Because again, my interest isn't in the collecting. It's in the story. That's what's important to me. Let's say a more modern looking story. Look at how good that looks. I mean, and you can zoom in on it. Oh my God. It's so much. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's a no-brainer. And I buy these from Comixology. Not affiliated with them or sponsored by them or anything like that. But I would rather read them on an iPad. It's just easier. And they're also nice to read on a computer. Because I like to be able to sit back and just kind of sit and think about it. I don't have to hold it in the perfect light, anything like that. I know you're probably like, Rob, you're so wrong. You poor man. I have a comic up there that's or a collection of the new IDW Transformers. Newer, it's not like really new. But I have that, and I bought it, and because I was like, it was on sale. And so I bought it, and I'm thinking, I'd like to collect all of these and just read them. The problem is, I didn't enjoy reading it on that. So I bought the digital version, and it was cheaper. So I got to read the story. I don't have to worry about it taking up a bunch of space or getting messed up from me reading it. I don't care about reselling them or anything like that. I'm fine with it. I'd really like to hear what you think, so please leave your comments below on what we talked about. And of course, consider hitting that subscribe button and give it a like if you enjoyed it. It really does help, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.